Elvis, it's Tuesday. It means tag day. Are we going to do a tag? Should we do a tag? Yeah? Hello everyone and welcome to this latest episode of Book Time with Elvis, with me Mark. And today of course is Tuesday, so that means another tag, and today's tag is the 20 Bookish Questions Tag, and I was tagged by Jim over at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff, and the original tag was created by the Book. There are 20 prompts or questions in this tag, so let's get started. The first one: how many books is too many books in a series? Well, I think it depends really on the series, but for me a good number would be about 6. As I said, it does depend on the series, because for example the Aubrey Maturin series is 20 full books and 21st unfinished book in that series, and I certainly don't think that's too much because they're wonderful books, but I think 6 is a good number, and especially if the series is long and some of the books work as standalone, then I think it doesn't really matter so much how long it is. Number 2, how do you feel about cliffhangers? Well, cliffhangers can be frustrating, but they can also be good. I don't really mind if a book in a series finishes on a cliffhanger, as long as I have the other book in the series to hand. What frustrates me is if I read a new book that's going to be part of a series, it ends on a cliffhanger, and then I have to wait for the next book in the series to be published or released. That would be extremely frustrating. Number 3, hardback or paperback. Again, it depends on the book or type of book. I really like hardbacks, of course, if they're reference books or compendiums like this one, for example. They can be really beautiful, and of course they feel, very solid, and it's very nice to have something in hardback that you can pull out and look stuff up or, delve into from time to time. However, for ease of reading, then I would prefer a paperback if I'm going to read it cover to cover, because I might read in bed. Well, I often read in bed, and therefore a paperback would be easier, though I have to say most of the time I use my Kindle. Number 4, favorite book. Very difficult, but I'll go with what I've often mentioned when asked that question. I'll go with 3 Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome. It's a fantastic book and still funny even today, and I certainly would recommend it to anyone. My least favourite book is another book I mentioned before. Probably there are others actually, but I'm just thinking of ones I've come across recently, and that would be Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. It appears a couple of times in this tag actually, as you'll see. Number 6, love triangles, yes or no? I think Jim mentioned that it's actually impossible to have a full triangle for love, but if it isn't ridiculous and it's important to the story, then why not? I'm not a big reader of romantic books anyway, so if the book I'm reading has a love triangle in it, then quite often it's just incidental to the rest of the story. Right. Number 7, the most recent book you couldn't finish. Well, I usually finish books, I have to say. I might put them on hold for a while, but in general, I do go back to them and get them finished. I couldn't think of one that I gave up on recently. I suppose I could go back to Norwegian Wood by Murakami again, because I kind of skipped some bits or read, skim read, which I don't normally do. So maybe I didn't read it in its entirety, but I certainly did go all the way through to the end somehow. 8, a book you are currently reading. Well, I'm currently reading 3 books, but I'll go with The Sixth Extinction, the Pulitzer Prize winning book, The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert. Really enjoying this one, although, as I mentioned in a previous video, it is quite terrifying really what can happen, but it's also fascinating when she talks about the evolution of life in all its forms. It's really quite an interesting read, and again I'd recommend it. So I suppose number 9 is the last book you recommended to someone. I guess I could say The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert, because of course I just recommended it to you. But if it was like a face-to-face meeting with someone where we were chatting over things, then the last book I recommended to someone was a book called From Russia with Blood by Heidi Blake, which looks at the Skripal poisonings in England, in Salisbury, and also looks about how Russia has been meddling, if you like, in British affairs by allegedly knocking off or assassinating people in the United Kingdom. And this came about because, of course, I don't know how many of you watch the news, especially regarding events here in the Czech Republic, but we have an ongoing row at the moment with Russia over a 2014 explosion at an arms dump, which has recently been linked to Russian agents and subterfuge, and apparently the two men that are wanted in connection with that explosion, which actually killed 2 people, are the same 2 men that were involved in these poisonings. What's the reason why I recommended this book to the people that I was talking to was because they were quite surprised to think of Russian meddling in Czech affairs. To be honest, I would have been surprised if that wasn't the case. So I said they should read this book as it was very interesting and terrifying read, actually. But, I'm not one to judge, whether or not everything is completely true in that. But it was certainly a very interesting read. So From Russia with Blood by Heidi Blake. The oldest book I've read, and it says by publication date. Well, I don't know really when it was published, but certainly I don't know if you can really count it as a book, but I suppose I read it in a book form, would be the Epic of Gilgamesh, and they say that was written, I suppose it was, circa 2100 to 1200 BC or BCE, as they say these days. The newest book I've read from publication date is actually From Russia with Blood, and that's November 2019, and that's the newest book I read this year. I don't think I read anything newer than that, or read anything newer than that yet. Number 12, favourite author. Again, this is a really difficult question because I have so many, but to give you a sample of the types of authors I like, I very much like Giles Milton, who writes a lot of historical narrative on a wide range of very interesting and often little studied subjects. William Boyd, but mostly his earlier work. I haven't read anything by him really in the last 15 years, say, so maybe he's changed. And then David Downing, who wrote the Station series of war/espionage books that I really enjoyed and I have talked about previously on this channel. Number 13, buying books or borrowing books. Well, I prefer buying books because then they're mine, all mine, and I can do with them what I will, though of course I don't mistreat books. But also I find that if you borrow books, there's an element of pressure to get them read before you have to return them. Number 14, a book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. Well, I know a lot of people don't like it. I've seen that when I've talked about it before, but it does seem whenever I talk to people about books, everyone goes for it, and they talk about Murakami as being really amazing, and perhaps he is really in his other books, but it does seem a lot of people like Norwegian Wood, but I don't. So there you go. Number 15, bookmarks or dog ears. Well, I prefer bookmarks. I don't really like dog ears very much. I have a nice collection, I'll show you 2 of them here, of Art Nouveau bookmarks from Czech artists. So we have, for example, a nice one there from Alfons Mucha, and actually Klimt, I guess, was Austrian, wasn't he? But at the time it was kind of the same place. So yeah, I have like these really nice bookmarks, and I have a whole collection of them, which I like to use. Excuse me. Number 16, a book you can always reread. Sorry, very dry. A book you can always reread. Treasure Island love it. Usually reread it once a year. And also Three Men in a Boat, because I think, again, it's fantastic. Number 17. Can you read while listening to music or hearing music? Actually, yes, and I mentioned this also in a recent video. I prefer to have music on when I'm reading. I find it very difficult to concentrate when I'm surrounded by silence. So for me, having some kind of, whether it's a distraction, no, it's not a distraction to me, but having some kind of noise, whether it's street noise, music, though I prefer music, on when I'm reading is quite important. Number 18, one POV or multiple POVs, POV being point of view. To me, it makes no difference at all. Just depends on the story, and if it works, then whatever the author chose is fine by me. Number 19, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? Depends on the book. Obviously, really big books take a longer time, so that can be over multiple days. Though also it depends on how much the book's grabbed my attention. I might try and read it through over the course of a day and a night. But typically it would take me a couple of days to read a book. Though, of course, these days it seems to be taking longer, but I take on more books at one time. So probably if you average it out, it's not going to be, it will probably end up being the same. So number 20, who do you tag? Well, I'm not sure who's done it. I tried to look on their channels and it didn't look like they'd done it to me. But I will tag Summer at Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, Christina at Knitting Books, etc., and Hannah at Hannah's Books. So I'll leave all the links and the prompts and everything below this video. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care, everybody. Stay safe and stay healthy. All the best. Bye-bye.